Hey everybody, Grillfather Johnny Al here. And today I'm going to smoke you a whole beef sirloin tip roast that you can't refuse. And my buddy back here is going to help me out. Stay tuned. I'll see you back on Texas.
We are live from my backyard where I am smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meat now. Someone asked me, do I smoke meat? That's gonna be delicious. Yeah, I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Now, before we get into any preparation, I just wanted to spend a quick moment and talk about what a whole beef sirloin tip roast really is. And despite its name, sirloin tip, it actually comes from the round primal section of the cow. So right here, you have your sirloin right here, a sirloin section right here. Here's the round primal. And technically, it comes from the front end of the rear leg. So right around in this area here is where your sirloin tip is going to come from. And other names for it include the knuckle, the round tip, and as you know, as the sirloin tip as well. So I have a 7-pound whole beef sirloin tip roast. It's an Angus. And what I'm going to do is take this out of its packaging, get it pat dried, and we'll come back and we'll start to get this prepared. Now the roast is all pat dried. I got that myoglobin off of the surface. It's not blood, it's myoglobin. And so what I want to do now is basically trim this up. And don't need to make it fancy or anything. Just want to get some of this fat that really isn't going to render. So I just want to take it off, and I'm not looking to make this some sort of a great looking trim. And it seems like a lot of people put so much emphasis on making the meat look pretty, but in reality, nobody cares how pretty an uncooked piece of meat looks. It's all about the taste and the tenderness and the texture. And of course, a nice juicy piece of meat. So I am not worried about scoring any points for the trim job that I do, because no one is going to see it and no one cares. So I took a lot off. This fat tag was just hanging on there. Here's a big piece right here that actually might be able just to pull that off. As you can see, get some of that off there. It's a nice big piece. Now there's some silver skin here that I'm going to try to remove. Basically a membrane that we don't want to have too much of that on the final product. So we get rid of that. And what helps in trimming fat is if you put the meat into the freezer for about 30 minutes or so, 15 minutes. Let it get a little bit hard. You don't want it to freeze up. What that will do then is it will make your life a lot easier for trimming fat. Because the harder the fat is, the easier it's going to come off. And when that fat gets warm, it gets basically kind of squishy and then really becomes tricky and difficult to get off. So a little bit back here. I'm not worried about the fat. I mean, it's got a little bit of marbling here, And I'm just going to take some of this intermuscular fat off. Not worried about the intra, because that's what gives the flavor. So I'll take some of that off. Take this guy off right here. Take these pieces off. Take some of this off right here as well. At least the surface of that. I don't have to go digging in. I mean, it could be tempting to go in and start digging out fat, but then it becomes kind of messy. So I'm going to take some of this off here too. A little bit of that. Again, I'm not going to dig into that. So I think I'm pretty happy with the trim on this. Again, I really don't care how it looks. Just tidying it up a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is, before putting it into the refrigerator overnight, I am going to put some of my secret weapon on, baking soda, which is basically sodium bicarbonate. And it is essentially going to be a brine. And what it does is, baking soda is a bona fide meat tenderizer. And you can do it as a wet brine if you're in a hurry, or you could do it as a dry brine. 3 to 5 hours with it on, or over the night, over the course of the night, which is what I'm going to do. And basically what the baking soda does is it changes the physical composition of the meat fibers and then raises the pH levels on the surface. And that makes it harder for the proteins in the meat to bind. And that is basically the tenderizing process. Now, in terms of how much I'm going to use, the recipe is basically 1% of the meat's weight in baking soda ounces. So what I mean by that is, this is a 7-pound roast, right? So 7 times 16 ounces is 112 ounces, and 1% of 112 is a little over 1%. I'm sorry, a little over 1 ounce. And that equates to about 2 tablespoons of the baking soda. So I'm going to cover the surface as best as I can with the baking soda, and we'll rub it in. Now go ahead and give that a good rub in on this side. Get some more here in the front and on the side here. Burn this side here as well. And a little bit more in the back. Let's flip this over. And we'll finish off the remaining 2 tablespoons on this side. Okay, that's all of that. Give that a good rub in. Get it set in there. And then, again, this is a dry brine. And we will let this set overnight. And what I'll do is I am going to put this on a cooling rack. And I like to deal with cooling racks because it's easier to transport the meat to and from the smoker, and it gives me a nice clean surface every time. So I'm not worried about how dirty my smoker grates are out there because the meat never touches it. So this will rest overnight. We'll come back tomorrow, and then we will put our binder and our dry rub on before putting it on the smoker. We'll talk more about the game plan tomorrow as well, and we will wash off this baking soda brine before doing any of that. So I'll see you tomorrow. Before we get into the second part of the preparation and putting the meat on the smoker, just wanted to cover a couple of things with you before I do that. And the first is what I call the 4 T's for successful barbecuing. And they are taste, tenderness, texture, and the most important T of all, technique. Now you may say, well, what about the T of temperature? And I agree that temperature is important, but I believe that the T of temperature falls up under the technique. So taste, tenderness, texture, and then technique. If you don't get the technique correct, if something happens along the way in the process that goes sideways, then your taste, your tenderness, and your texture, one or maybe all 3 of those, are not going to turn out the way you want, and you might not be happy with your end product. So taste, tenderness, texture, and technique, the 4 T's for successful barbecuing. The second thing that I want to talk about is really the game plan for the cook. And, with anything in life, you have to have a plan. You have to have a game plan. And barbecuing, smoking meat is no different. And what I use to keep me on track is a cook log. This is the cook log that I use. It's basically a 3-ring binder, and contained within the cover of this cook log are many sheets of various and different cooks that I have done. And we will get into what's on this sheet for today's particular cook. We'll get to that in a minute. But what I want to tell you about the cook log is basically it's a system for monitoring and managing the cook. And it will keep you on track. It will keep you focused. You'll know what time you put the meat on. And then from there, you'll be able to gauge what times you spritzed and any other changes that you have to make, maybe changing the wood or whatever the case may be. It really just keeps you on track. That way you don't have to remember when the last time you spritzed. All you do is glance down at your paper and it will tell you. And really, in the end, when I'm done with the cook, I slip that game log sheet into its proper place in the logbook. And then when I go to do the same cook, maybe 6 months or a year later, I don't have to remember what I did on this particular day. I just pull the sheet out and my memory is refreshed right on the spot, and I don't have to try to figure things out and reinvent the wheel again. So I highly, highly encourage you to have some sort of cook log management system in place, especially if you are new to the world of barbecuing and a beginner when it comes to smoking meat. So again, highly encourage that. I've been doing barbecuing for many years, and I still use this because it really does help me stay on track. So let's take a moment now and do a deep dive into what today's cook is going to look like on the sheet. Now this is a bird's eye view of the log sheet. And as you can see on the left here, I have a number of categories in this left column. And they're broken down into 3 stages: the pre-cook, and then the in-cook stage, and then the post-cook. Then I also record weather and any other comments. So for today's cook, we're going to be using the Pit Boss 1100. We're doing a whole beef sirloin tip roast. It is 7 pounds in weight. Got it at Sam's Club. It's frozen. And the rub that I'm using, that we'll get to here in a moment, we started off with baking soda. Remember that? Yesterday is the meat tenderizer. And then today we're going to go with a very low sodium rub, a no salt, and accent or MSG and 16 mesh coarse ground black pepper combination. The binder that I use is duck fat, and that's my binder of choice. We are using post oak wood along with a water pan today. So we're looking today to cook at 225 degrees, and we want to get the roast up to 130 degrees. Now, you can have fall apart type roast if you want to take it up to 190 degrees, but I want to slice it today, so we're only going to go to 130 degrees internal temperature. And then I'll record the start time here, and if I'm wrapping, and then the end time, the total time that it took to cook, and then my spritz times in there, any time that I replenished wood, and then I record when I start the rest and end the rest, what my temperatures were outside, the ambient temperature, if there was any moisture or any winds. And then, as I mentioned before, any comments that I can use for the next time that will help me in the next cook. Now, I took the roast out of the refrigerator from resting overnight with the baking soda meat tenderizer on it, and I thoroughly washed off that tenderizer. So what we're going to do now is put our binder on and then put our rub on. And the binder that I use, my binder of choice, is duck fat, and I'll put a link in the description below. This just is my particular choice for a binder. You can use whatever you want. Some people use olive oil, some people use mustard, but I just like to use the duck fat. So I am going to be cooking the meat like this. So what I'm going to do is flip this over and do this side first. So let me give this a good coating on this side. And I use a low sodium rub, and I don't use salt. And just because the American diet has too much sodium, too much salt in it as it is, and I'm not going to contribute to that. I don't have a sodium health issue, and I intend to keep it that way. So, and I find that when I use the no salt and accent, which is MSG, if I use this combination, I get the same tastes and results as I do with using actual salt. So I'm going to give this a nice generous coat of the salt substitute. Again, this one just happens to be called no salt. There's other brands out there, but I will give a generous coating of this. And then I will use just a light dusting of the accent. I don't want to put too much of that on. This is MSG. Don't believe the health reports about MSG generated over the decades. They've all proven to be not true. So feel free to use the MSG. And then I'm going to put a coating of 16 mesh coarse ground black pepper. I get this out of Georgia, a source out of Georgia. I'll put the link in the description as well. And I will put a nice coating on here also, which will add nicely to the bark formation of the roast as it smokes. And then another ingredient that I like to use with beef, and this is the only time I use it, is rosemary. And it just adds a little extra to the flavor profile. So I'm going to put a little coating of that on as well. Just a light dusting. I don't want to overpower the flavor in the end. So just a few sprinkles of that on. Now let's flip it over. Oh, let me just kind of set it in there first. Make sure it sticks to the surface. Then we can flip it over. And we will do the same thing on this side. Hit the binder. And we'll put our salt substitute on. In all the years of cooking meat without using salt, no one has ever said to me, when it comes time to eat, this needs salt or pass the salt. So feel free to try this low sodium method. I think you'll be happy with it and you won't notice the difference. So a light coating of the MSG, and we'll put on our 16 mesh pepper. And then finally, we'll hit it with a little sprinkle of the rosemary as a little bonus flavor. Pat it in, and that's it. I will now put this back on the cooling rack so that I can transport it out to the smoker. The last thing we need to do before we put the meat on is to get our smoker box fired up. And this is the smoker box here. This is a Diamond King smoker. It's a 6-inch by 12-inch size. It comes in a 6x6 as well. This is a game changer when it comes to pellet grills. This smoke box is going to give you stick burner, offset smoker type quality of smoke. And the way it works is you have this stainless steel smoker box. Inside I have an airflow cage with some fire starters. Then I have some lump charcoal in there. I'm going to fire this up. And we're going to let this lump charcoal ignite. Let it ash over just a little bit. Then we're going to come back and we're going to put our post oak mini split on. So we'll give this just a few minutes. Nice fire is going now. The lump charcoal is ashing over. So let's go ahead and put on our post oak mini split. And I get these at Woodchuck Firewood. Andy is the person that runs that company, and he can get you any kind of wood. I just like to use the post oak. You can see I have a nice mini split here. We'll go ahead and put this on. Let it catch. I'm just going to give it a little jump start with the torch here as well. And I promise you, when this goes into the smoker, you're going to see some beautiful post oak smoke generating. Again, this is a game changer for pellet grills. I highly recommend you spend the $50 to get yourself a smoker box. It does take up a little bit of room, but if you're only smoking one meat at a time, which is what I do, then it's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and let this catch, and then we'll get over to the smoker. Now we have our smoker up the temperature. It's generating some nice blue smoke. And let's take a look inside, see what's going on there. So we got our roast in. We always put it as close to the smokestack end as possible so that we get maximum amount of smoke rolling over it. Over here we have our post oak mini splits and chunks, and all that's left to do at this point is to add some hot water, always hot water, to our water pan. Help maximize moisture. Give that a little push in. I always put it underneath. And then we will just monitor from here on out and be spritzing along the way. My probe thermometer is going off. It just went over the 130 mark, a little over one degree over. Let's go ahead and just do a double check with the ThermoPro, the ThermoPen, and it's showing 131 as well. So I am going to take this off, and I spritzed it for a total of 5 times. After the first 2 hours, I spritzed it, and then I spritzed it every 30 minutes after that. I'm going to give it one last spritz of the apple cider vinegar, and the color looks really good. So it's definitely time to take it off. 30 minutes later. The total cook time was about 5 minutes shy of 4 hours. So let's go ahead and open this up and see how things turned out. And again, I like the bark on it. The color looks good. Take this out here. You can see the juices that are in the bottom of the foil here. So let me just get this out of the way. And then we will get to cutting. Center this a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm definitely going to cut from this side. And the way I cut is I cut on the double bias. So on the bias is a 45-degree angle like this. And then on the double bias is you take that and turn it 45 degrees this way. And so you're cutting on the angle and then on a separate angle. What this does is makes the meat turn out even more tender based on the way that it's being cut. So that's the way I am going to cut this today. And I'm just going to take this piece off here at the end. It was kind of loose when I started before we even put it on. So let's go ahead and take that off. And then we'll just slice away here on the double bias. And as I mentioned, we went to 130 degrees internal temperature. You could take this all the way up to 190 if you wanted to do it like a brisket. But that possibly would have doubled our cook time today. I'm liking the way that it's slicing here. So here we are, almost to the middle here. Another slice or two, just to kind of give you an idea. And you can see as I slice how the juices are just pouring out there. And I like it when I slice it and it just kind of flops over like that. It's still super hot inside. I'll take one more slice here. I think that's good. And you can see, just get that straggler out there. A lot of people put an emphasis on the smoke ring, as you can see here. I just point it out because people like to point it out. As I've said in other videos, the smoke ring means absolutely, positively nothing in terms of the cook. A lot of people use it as kind of a badge of honor, but it doesn't. The smoke ring does not have any impact on the taste, the tenderness, and the texture, the moistness of the meat. It's just something that happens in the course of barbecue. So you can have a nice smoke ring all day long, and the meat could be tough and not taste good. So again, it's meaningless, but I just point it out. Little tug test there. So I am going to go ahead and finish slicing this up, and then I'll be back for some closing comments. So I just finished carving up the roast, and what I'm going to do now is ring the dinner bell, let the gang know that it's time to eat. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I don't do taste tests on camera. Again, the reason is because I can't offer you a bite. I can't offer you a piece. So I'm not going to eat in front of you. I did do a little taste test on the side as I was carving things up. I was happy with the flavor. Remember the 4 T's: taste, tenderness, texture. I think those all turned out really good, which means I think the technique really worked out well for this cook. So I would encourage you to take some tips away from this video in terms of the technique. And I think if you follow the process, you follow the technique outlined in today's video, when it's your turn to do a beef sirloin tip roast, that when it comes time to carve it up, to serve it to family and friends, that you are going to be happy with the taste, tenderness, and texture. And when you give it to one of them to eat, they're going to take a bite and they're going to say, "This is all night long." So no taste test on camera, but I am going to give this the Grill Father Johnny L stamp of approval. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by the channel. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful and helpful. Would you do me a favor hitting the like and subscribe buttons, as well as sharing this video with a family member or friend? Till next time, this is Grill Father Johnny L. Take care, God bless, smoke on. Ciao for now.